Hey, brilliant body. I'm Ali Mazet, a body based practitioner for over 40 years. I created this podcast as a space to explore what it means to be rather than have a body. Together with my incredible guests, pioneers, body masters, and trailblazers, we'll challenge old paradigms and expand the meaning and experience of intelligence through the lens of the body. Whether you feel adrift or overwhelmed as a body due to pain, conditioning, or a lack of education and guidance, or you already feel at home as a body but want to deepen your awareness, pleasure, and communion, this podcast is for you. Be sure to check out the show notes of each episode for gifts, resources, definitions, photos, and tools shared by each of our guests to help you take action in exploring your own body brilliance. So let's reclaim and celebrate the brilliance of being bodies together. My next brilliant and delightful guest, Rachel Scott, combines thousands of hours of teacher training experience with her academic expertise to help yoga teachers and studios create transformational educational experiences. She supports students, teachers, and trainers to share their passion, find their voice, and inspire others. In addition to authoring 5 books, she's written for Yoga International, Yoga U Online, and the Huffington Post, and exuberantly shares her knowledge through her coaching, YouTube channel, online courses, free online classes, and today with us for the Brilliant Body podcast. And as you'll hear, Rachel is so much fun to be with. I got to meet her in person once so far when she and her amazing partner, Gil Headley, the integral anatomist, were moving across California and the country on this phenomenal expose of the nervous system of the human form called the Nerve Tour. I've been with Rachel online before and since many times, but it's never been just the two of us having a conversation. So it was all the more fun just to get Rachel to myself and now getting to share her with you. So here we go. Rachel,
Hello. How are you?
I'm happy to see you. It's been too long, and I'm so excited we're finally doing this.
Oh, yay!
Yay! So, guess what? I didn't
What?
know you're an authoress and you've written all these
Oh,
books. I didn't
yeah.
know that you had a book about dating, yoga and dating.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just listened
I
to
sure
a
do.
podcast with you speaking about that particular book, Head Over
Oh,
Heels, which
yes, that
is
book.
another thing. And so you have all these expertise that are relevant to and predicated on the intelligence of the body. So I
Yeah.
am so excited to just have this conversation to just let it take us where it goes. You
Great.
know what my fascination is, and it must be your fascination, how these things are so much of who we are as intelligent beings and spiritual beings and emotional beings and
Mm.
alive beings. So that's where I would love to just start is actually probably let's start with yoga because it's something I used to do in days of yore. And then I stopped and I got increasingly, to be really frank, a little icked out with how the cultural fad kind of appropriated some of the beauty of yoga for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can we just start there? Because I feel like you're the perfect person to pull
Mm.
away the haze of that trend that the Western world and specifically California and Lululemon got a hold of, you
I'm
know?
from the home of Lululemon. I lived in Vancouver for many years. And yeah, the guy who started that is definitely does not feel like a yogi.
Okay, well, and I love their clothes, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Oh, they're great.
And
Yeah.
it got so into the trappings of yoga rather than the gifts of yoga. So I just thought, since we haven't done an
Yeah.
episode about yoga at all, that if we could just start there,
Right.
that would be great. Why do you love yoga? What is it about for you?
Well, yeah, I love yoga because it helps me be present. I mean, it's like, what do we mean by yoga? Because yoga is really massive, right? So when I first started yoga, yoga was about oh, postures and about sequencing and about, maybe there was some pranayama and meditation and sitting and being still for just a few minutes. And then as you learn, you get into it more. Yoga is now about philosophy and about how we live our lives and about who are we and what are we actually. So really, yoga to me now is not believing that I'm my conditioned body mind running around as a personality doing all these things, but to connect with what underlies the matrix, if you will, what underlies reality, what is connecting to us, how do we get connected to our hearts? That's yoga. So I still love postural yoga because it puts me in my body. It puts me in a space that's more aligned with and receptive to being connected, being loving, being kind, which I think is all more in alignment with how the universe kind of works. So there's a few few
Yeah.
aspects to it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about is how yoga provides a pathway and space for exploration, which is what you were just talking about too, or alluding to, that it is a medium through which and by which we're able to evolve basically as humans in relationship, in dating.
Mhm.
Just talk about that as just your don't love this verb, but use of yoga for the purposes of your own development.
Yeah, a yoga practice when we get on the mat is a space where we pause. It's a place where we go, oh, wait a minute. I'm in the moment. I'm in the now. I'm in my body, which so many of us are disconnected from. I mean, I practice yoga because I need it, not because I'm good at it. You know, I'm like a hamster running around like I have all these ideas.
Uh-huh.
And it's a practice for me to be like, okay, no, you're here. This is your body. This is this moment, which opens up space to reflect, and we can pull ourselves out of the stream of our habits and our conditioning and just our default mode, which runs for most of us runs 90% of our lives.
Yeah.
And we go, wait a minute. Oh, it's like taking the 40,000 foot view where we go, okay, wait a minute. How am I showing up? And also, how do I actually feel? Because so many of us don't tap into or get disconnected from not only our physical body and the sensations of our physical body and our posture and what's going on, but of course, also the more subtle things like our feelings and all of that, which can guide us and help us to connect more intuitively and with ease and with grace to what we need and how we can, in order to be in the world. So, the yoga space becomes a space of stopping, breathing, feeling, and then being able to be more mindful about, okay, what thoughts do I choose to believe? What experience am I choosing to participate in right now? Can I take a moment so that out in the world we can go like, oh, wow, I'm being a dick to my partner, or wow, I'm so furious. Like, what am I reacting to? And so we get that an ability to self-regulate without it being punitive, because sometimes we do that too, don't we? We're so hard on ourselves, or like, you
Yeah.
should do this or you should be this way. In yoga, it's kind of like, no, I can enhance my capacity to feel all the feels of aliveness without necessarily inflicting myself on someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the space that I think we get to, and everybody feels it. I think not everybody. People come back for a second yoga class, even from the first class, you do shavasana or something, and you go, "Huh, I feel different," and that's what brings people back. You know?
I do know. And I think it's so
Yeah.
interesting what you just described. You're basically talking about, and our recent decades have coined a term for it, which is mindfulness, being more of the body and experiencing the body helps people be more mindful. Though I like to think of it more in terms of being more bodyful, but we don't use that word, partially because it's awkward, but partially because people tend to identify themselves as the mind that they're experiencing, as the mind that they are and what they're thinking. Back to good old Descartes, I think, therefore I am.
Which
So
is so
people,
weird.
which is so weird. And yet, what you're describing is the more we feel our flesh and our bones and our proprioception and our interoception, the more we're able to notice how we are in relation to partners and people and animals and careers and money and all the stuff that we encounter daily.
Yeah, Ali, I think you should coin the new term. So rather than mindfulness, we can have bodyfulness.
Bodyfulness or bodiness. I know. Well, I do have a bodiness blog, which I've been doing more of, to just talk about, obviously I've got a bit of an obsession about what this thing is that we are while we're alive. And what is this to be a body as opposed to a
Mhm.
mind in a body? And that's what, of course, this podcast is always exploring. And while I'm saying this to you, I can't help but notice the skeleton that
It's
is
gills.
I love this. So Rachel has a skeleton in her beautiful studio, sitting in the corner, or standing in the corner, I should say. And you have been in, I can't even imagine the thousands of hours that you have seen the insides of bodies, either via video or being right there on the premises of
Mhm.
dissections and intersections of just experiencing the interior of a body. And you teach anatomy to yogis. And I would love for you to talk about that too, like how much that's afforded you to understand and literally experience sensationally yourself as a body because you so intimately know the anatomy from the
Ah.
inside out.
It's funny, Allie, this is actually Gil's Mr. Bones. So I snagged it from him because I was
Oh,
teaching
nice.
anatomy online. And I have a skeleton, but it's disarticulated. So he's like, "Where's Mr. Bones?" I was like, "He's with me now. He's with me now." So I've been very blessed to have a tactile experience of anatomy. I took two courses with Gil Headley back in 2012. He's my partner now, but 2012 and 2013. And then when he became my partner 2019, then I was in the lab a lot assisting him with a lot of his projects, and also once a year or whatever trying to take one of his courses as a student because they're so inspiring and beautiful. And although I might honestly, what I get out of studying anatomy, especially with Gil, isn't really the names and the functions and the forms, because at some point it's so much, it's so complicated, it's so rich that if I take any new information or if Gil shows me videos or I'm helping him in the lab, really what I get out of it is just being gobsmacked by the mystery.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
as a sense of awareness, I have some perception of what's going on in my body, but
yeah.
honestly, like I don't have any idea how this all works or the mysterious miracle that happens for all of us each and every day to have all of this going on. So mostly that's my takeaway from anatomy is just wow.
I love
Like,
hearing that it hasn't worn off for you,
no,
even after
no,
all these years and all these hours that you're still gobsmacked. As I imagine we would all be if we get through the formaldehyde and the ick factor that a lot of people would just naturally feel because we're not used to dealing, most of us, with dead bodies, let alone cut open bodies.
yeah,
And of course, there's also the factor. I mean, I used to think about that, about bodies that aren't cut open might look very different inside than once they're cut open and suddenly, I used to as a
who
kid imagine what
knows?
if they're full of fairy dust and as soon as they're cut open, they suddenly become like, flesh and blood and bone, but they actually have this electrical, magical, as you were saying, this mind-boggling functionality and existence and phenomenon that they are that we can't begin to grok. I mean, it's just beyond the beyond. It's just incredible.
Beyond. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. And Allie, it wouldn't surprise me too if you're exactly right and we are filled with fairy dust. Because you know how they say in quantum mechanics, really, it's only when you observe something that it solidifies out
Exactly.
of potentiality.
I was kind of grappling at that. I was sort of there, and then I was also in If a Tree Falls in the Forest and Nobody's There. I was in that one. And then I was also in a cartoon I saw as a kid in the New Yorker where there was a lion and its natural prey. And when there was a human that came near them, the lion was growling at the prey. But then as soon as the human walked away, they lay down together. So I was in those three images. So thank you for putting your finger on exactly the quantum physics aspect that I was circling
Yeah.
around. Yeah, it is so amazing. So, what else in particular right now is dazzling you about our bodiness, our bodyfulness, our being bodies? When you're feeling that communion, is there anything in particular
Mm.
that you're either grappling with right now in your own incarnation, or feeling particular grace about, or both?
Oh, it's such a what a beautiful question. So there's a couple things. I'll just start with really simple, like what I'm grappling with. So one of the things is I'm trying to think about like, okay, so what's a spiritual practice? That there's a spiritual practice of I'm more in the kind of like for yoga philosophy, tantric Shaivism kind of world. I love all the things. But is to say, okay, so the world is that my embodiment actually as a manifestation, all of our embodiment as a manifestation of universal consciousness. And so, how do I live in my body and totally love it, totally honor it? This is why I like Tantra, because it's not just like get out of Dodge, go have a transcendental spiritual experience, and the world is
Totally.
crap.
Yeah.
So, basically, it's kind of like, hey, the relationships, the fabric of our lives, my body, my embodiment, all of this is part of this great big play. So, I think what I find myself feeling into is it's like recognizing or trying to sit with and feel wow, the connection to everything, but at the same time, also that this is such a gift,
Yeah.
that this individual expression and your individual expression and everybody in this plan is all also real and also precious and beautiful. So it's tale as old as time, but how do we live our spirituality through our embodiment? So it's not in outer space, it's right here. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. And for me, one of the
Mhm.
practices I'm doing, it sounds like airy fairy, but it's like I'm just trying to be still more because you know how it is. You get out there in the world, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners would understand, like in our culture, we're so busy, we're so productive, so
Yeah.
many to-do lists. I've lived like that for the last 40 years. I will
Yeah.
be a good person if I get stuff done. And now I'm like trying to put a little wedge, which is funny. I'm a yoga teacher, right? You think that I'd be like all, but no, I'm like trying to put like a wedge in my own thing by just being still and watching the world and more importantly feeling because it's not out there in here, it's like all of it. So I feel my body and look at the world and feel the sensations and notice my thoughts and notice how beautiful the mountains are, just giving space to just be in your body and feel and take this crazy world in. That's one of my current practices now, is just to stop, just stop, go sit outside and just sit there for 10 minutes. And it's really it's like a relief. It's like this, oh wow, it's refilling a tank I didn't know needed replenished, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of folks, we can make our yoga practice like something again that we just add to our to-do list. And I've certainly done that where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take out the garbage, I'm gonna whatever, call my mother, and then I'm gonna do my yoga practice and I check it off my list and then I've had a good day, you know. That's totally beautiful and great. It's on the map, but to experiencing it as a place where we can reconnect to something that's more fundamental, I think would be an invitation for me too. I say the things I need to hear to reconnect
Yeah.
to practice as a place to ground ourselves in that beautiful awareness or that just sense of being alive and being, which underlies everything we do, but can get lost when we pile all of our stuff on top of it.
I'm smiling and I'm also feeling misty listening to you because, of course, I identify with whatever you're saying because I also was infected and inspired by the same bug that productivity is so integral to value. And that's in terms of, self-worth and all of that, but it's also in terms of contributing. And I don't know you well, but it is clear to me that you have a deep desire and value to contribute. And you're so intelligent and you're so fast. It's clear you have a very fast mind. You wouldn't have been able to accomplish all the things you've accomplished because you have multiple expertise. And you also look so much younger than you are that it makes me think that your sense of time, your biological time, is probably different than a lot of people's. What
That's
do you
interesting.
think?
That's so fun. Well, thank you. Gil and I talk about this a lot because we have very different rates of
Yeah, paces.
movement.
Yeah,
Yeah, Gil is he's slow and deep,
yeah.
and I'm very fast. I'm fast and up here, and then it takes for me the being still and the getting quiet and settling down. That's the work for me. Whereas for him, he already has that stateliness about the way he works. So it's very funny. We talk about it a lot. I think this goes to relationships. I know I'm sort of taking a tangent, but
No, go
when
there. I was going
yeah,
that way too. Is the complementarity, complementary, what's the word? Complement, yeah. You know what I mean?
Complementariness? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Like, obviously, you guys are balancing each other, which at best would be so growthful and
Mm,
healing, but at worst would probably be clashy sometimes. Like, slow down or
totally.
speed up, dude, or whatever it is.
We've had both moments for sure,
Yeah,
Allie,
I
especially
bet.
on the
I bet.
tour when we were in close proximity. He'd be
Yeah.
like, slow down. And I'd be like, "Ah." Anyways, so I think that relationship comes from not trying to make someone else like us.
Yeah.
Because it tends to be what makes us feel safe. We gravitate to people who have similar value systems and conditioning and stuff like that because that feels familiar. And we go like, oh, I'm okay because they're like me. Totally normal to like that, to enjoy that. And I think that we can expand ourselves to then be open to people and to honor how they are a unique expression of, we could say, the goddess or the universe, that they are this really unique thing, and to appreciate that. And then we notice, of course, when I'm like, why is he taking so long? I can go like, okay, that's me. And there's that self-reflection moment. Or when he's like, wow, she was so fast, same thing. So maturity is cultivating our ability to want to appreciate all the diversity and the different expressions that come out of everybody. And then also to be self aware enough to notice when our own agenda is getting in the way of that appreciation. And so we can go, okay, I'm just feeling anxious, triggered, angry, whatever it might be. For me, it's usually anxiety that creates that impatience or that kind of persona to come out. And that's growth, and that's relationship, is when we can appreciate the other person for exactly who they are rather than who we need them to be for us to feel okay. And if we can do that in our relationship, I mean, good Lord, what if we could do that with the world and all those people out
Yeah.
there who have all those different ideas than we have, that we want to go like, and instead go like, all right, okay, create room.
Difference and compatibility. It's a good segue to talk a bit about dating and yoga lending insight and guidance to how to do that better. But I want to loop back around to a few things you said and we started to talk about, which is somatic time, and that it is so different for different people. And
Mm.
I'm finding as I'm getting older, the less I need people to fill in the gaps. And you talked about this in the podcast episode I listened to. You guys were talking about filling in our deficiencies and choosing people based on what we are lacking, which I think is so fascinating. I spent several years in a relationship with somebody that was kind of like an alter ego at best. And was sort of the masculine manifestation of who I thought I would want to be in the world, adventure, living in Africa and feeling safe in environments that I would want to feel safe in, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, the cost of that was also dealing with a rogue at worst in a variety of different ways. And I'll spare everybody the painful details. But I think that's so interesting how we can live out aspects of ourselves through other people, grow aspects of ourselves with other people, or just accept that we're missing certain aspects of ourselves that may never be able to really mesh with another person. So that's one thing I wanted to just see what you think about
Mm.
that.
Yeah, as you were speaking about that relationship, it reminded me of a relationship that I was involved in with this person, this guy who really seemed to have something that I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was so painful
Mm.
because I really felt like if he liked me and approved of me, then somehow I would have the thing that I wanted. I was like, oh, and it was not great. And he could feel that too. He could feel like she wants something from me that's not really about, it wasn't really about him, really who he was. And anyway, so that was not great. But so I think it's one thing to be inspired. And so maybe we can pay attention to those desires and yearnings and say like, oh wow, okay, I really yearn for that. And then we can practice the discrimination of, is that something I really want for me? So that we start to get becoming a little bit more thoughtful about, it's like reparenting ourselves. And what are the missing pieces that I'm feeling? To also recognize that we're absolutely perfect and beautiful and an expression of everything. This is also the paradox, right? You're amazing. We're amazing exactly as we are, with all those longings and all those feelings of incompleteness and all those anxieties and all those, all of that. Beautiful. That's how the universe is expressing. It's wonderful. And at the same time, I'd like to improve some things. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
our minds are so bad with paradox, but paradox is where the universe lives. She's like, Right on. I love the
Yeah.
paradox. That's it. So it would have been great in that moment if rather than feeling like such a rejection of myself, which of course is just me judging myself for those things that I hadn't cultivated, if I could have gone like, wow, okay, I really, I want that. And so that we're not trying to find people to fill in these holes. Also, they're just holes in our conditioning. It's not holes in who we are. Fundamentally, we're fine, but we develop these conditioned personas that kind of feel lack in all these different spaces. And so part of our work is to connect to the ground of being, which is always whole and wonderful and present and free. And then also our worldly work is to go like, all right, my I really want that for myself. And how can I either heal this or maybe I need to go out and get it and then be like, all right, I got the thing. So yeah, but I think if we can see maybe those yearnings as information rather than a call to necessarily go get them, then
Yeah,
we
I
can learn
love
from
that. And
it.
also to notice that the cost might be too high to
Mm.
gain either those qualities or those aspects of identity. Do you really want what goes along with that in the other person or even in yourself? Okay, you want to live all around Africa and get malaria and not be able to sustain a relationship and all the stuff that went along with the reality of those
Right.
aspects of life experience that I admired so much and got to some extent because I chose that person and it cost me a lot,
Ah.
which reminds me of something else. There was other things in that. Oh, that now in dating, which I am choosing very different things. And one of them, back to this somatic time issue, is how I feel as a body with somebody, even
Mm.
if they're not intellectually what would be on my list or culturally would be on my list or things that in the past that I thought I needed in order to feel X, Y, or Z. I'm paying much more attention to, do I relax with this person? What is my nervous system doing
Wow.
with this person? Which is so completely different because I'm noticing more and more that there's not that many people that I actually relax with, that I feel better around, as opposed to I've got to bump up my nervous system in some way in order to mitigate our differences or in order to, on some level, survive, something, or to be seen or not to be seen, or all the
Mhm.
stuff that we can contort ourselves with. So I was curious about that too, because of course we can also disregard things that are so important. But in this episode, you were also speaking about just really being able to say yes, being able to say
Uh,
no, basing our agreement, for example, when to have sex or not, with greater respect than a lot of us have been able to in the past, perhaps. I was really struck by the use of the word respect and what that means, because
mm,
to me, when I heard you say that, it immediately gave me a sense of a holistic experience of yes, of navigation.
mm,
So I was curious about what you meant by that and the sensation of respect, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
mm. I think that's so wise to make your body part of the. Obviously, it should be, but how many of us just go exactly with what we think, or we all create those lists? They're like, write a list of your perfect person and just
Yeah.
write down all the things. And rarely is it, and I will feel relaxed. My nervous system will feel receptive. Rarely is it that. Usually it's like, okay, well, they're this tall and they really value these.
Yeah.
So, and it's not to discount some of those things but to make listening to your body, which has so much wisdom, our bodies have, we can't even, our mind tends to discount the crazy, vast, complex, sophisticated wisdom of our body. So to make that part of the conscious picture, I think is so brilliant. And it seems like a no-brainer, but you say that and it's unusual for someone to do that rather than just being stuck in the mind of like, what should I do to make myself look good? Or what were you going to say, Allie?
Or, well, or stuck in one's lust, frankly. That's
Yep.
another way to navigate with the body. What you're
Mm,
seeing, what you're desiring physically, sexually, sensationally. So, what happens if because this can coexist, being very attracted sexually, but my nervous system is not comfortable, either because it's jacked up, which can be part of eros and excitement and all of that, or it can be it's jacked up because I'm really uncomfortable here in some capacity, in some way. I know this isn't
Mm,
exactly right. I'm going to jump off a cliff here and I'm going to hope this works out because I'm feeling desire. And yet the information there is being
yeah.
misread by other aspects of the body. So just like the mind
Mm,
can be very difficult to interpret because it's endless what the mind can come up with.
ah,
The body is also can be quite complex with how to really live by the information and then the intelligence, or as you say, the wisdom that it's offering.
mm. And I think there's nothing wrong with patience. And that isn't to say that you go on a date with somebody, you meet them, you have sex with them immediately. It could go great. Like I know marriage is based on that. And yet, at least for my system, and perhaps for others who are listening too, it's helpful to wait until there's enough time for all of the systems to pipe in and go like, how do we
Mm,
feel? So my mind has the time to filter through its own bullshit because it could go either way. It could
yeah.
justify anything. So it has time to calm down. Lust has a time to have its space. And then, as you say, like the deeper listening of, do I feel safe? Like, really is kind of what that is. Do
Yeah.
I feel safe rather than performative or whatever that might
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it just takes longer. We live in a world where I think we get so many conflicting messages around sex, so much that we have to create our own internal choices and logic that feel right to us. And I think it's going to be different for everybody. Maybe some people move quickly through some of those decision points, and maybe some of us need a longer period of time. And there's no wrong answer to that.
I'm going to come back to the notion of somatic time, though, because as I'm listening to you, when you said the word patience, which I am not good at, by the way, you might have seen my ears swivel because our sense of time can be so inextricably related to our sense of safety, to our sense of, is it okay if it takes me longer? Am I going to be judged or rejected if I wait? Is this person going to give up on me if I
Yeah.
take weeks or months? Not just in a sexual context, but to get a project done or to get whatever. Of course, we have things called deadlines. And yet, I know for myself that that sense of time and urgency, let's call it urgency, and instant gratification is another term we use for it, can be so related to that sense of scarcity in time continuing in any given relationship. And I know that that operates a lot in me. Again, another aspect of my bodily experience that isn't necessarily conscious all the time of what is urging me on. Is it being just fully lustful, or is it that some part of me is panicked that I won't
Mm.
get enough time with this person to let it unfold?
Mm. I think maybe this is just part of the wonderful game where we can't see all of the pieces and we don't always know what the right answer is. I have a little Shiva sculpture over there, and I love the Shiva. It's the five acts, and I'm reminded of this too because and take great comfort in this particular sculpture. In fact, maybe I'll just go grab it. I'll bring him over so you can see him. Here it is. Right, so
Oh,
there's
yeah.
Shiva.
Huh?
Yay. Yep. And the five acts are creation, sustaining. So things begin, things sustain. So that's like defining all of everything that happens everywhere. But the other two acts are concealment and revelation.
Hmm.
And why I love that is because they're going like, you know what? You're not going to see everything all the time. We're going to be blindsided. We're going to not be able to see through our own stuff. We're going to forget our real connections. Like part of the game of embodiment is that we don't get to be omnipotent. We don't get to have all the answers, even to ourselves. So I've made plenty of, in hindsight, bad choices that felt really right at the time. And it's like, this feels right enough that I do this thing, and then afterwards I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe that didn't feel so good. But in the we can't. So part of the game is that we can't always see it, and sometimes you don't know. Like Gil will talk about, sometimes you don't know a boundary's there until you cross it. So
Yeah.
sometimes part of it is that we do it and then we're like, oh, okay. And the challenge too is that those boundaries change. With this person, my boundary might be over here. And then
Yeah.
with this person, it's here and we don't know. So I love that there's concealment and revelation as part of this because it just is a reminder to me. It's like, oh, it's okay. You're not supposed to see. That's part of the game. Because if you could see, there wouldn't be any of this. We just like sit and be like, perfected beings or something. So
I
it's
love
hard
how
to
much
see.
meaning you get from symbology, which is, of course, exactly why it was created. That's why we have statues and
Mm,
symbols and reminders of things, because there's people like you and hopefully like me that just take that as a talisman, and it opens
yeah.
this whole portal to all this growth and understanding and wisdom. So thank you for just translating this physical object that's this
Mm,
incarnation of some artist who created this and somehow brings forth and reminds us. It's like a port key of this
yeah.
goddess energy that understood all these things, that spirituality understands how to encode in these different rituals and symbols and all this stuff to hopefully remind us of how to proceed.
Yeah, or yeah, to have some grace at least around. It's hard. It's not easy being a human on the planet,
No,
I don't
no,
think.
it is not. It is not.
Yeah.
And a lot of species at the hands of humans, unfortunately, is even worse. So, whew, definitely humans got some accountability to reckon with, I think. I
Yeah.
want to ask you more about historically, but also it sounds like in your own personal journey of that transition from the transcendental or the transcendence model of yoga to the more tantric model or practice of yoga. And do you know what was going on in the East in order to help support that evolution?
Hmm.
Was it a revolution? Was it a quiet thing? Were people imprisoned for this? How radical was that? Or did it happen over
Hmm.
hundreds or even thousands of years that people started to recognize, wait a minute, I know life is rough on planet Earth, so I just want to go
Hmm.
beyond it, whether that's in yogic traditions or Christianity for that matter, or Islam. I'm going to look
Hmm.
forward to what happens on the other side because it's so rough here, as opposed to, wait, let's experience what this is while we have it, to be
Hmm.
these physical forms that can experience not just all the physical sensations, but the profound energetic and spiritual opportunity that all this physical experience gives us.
I will apologize right now to all of my yoga history philosophy teachers. I hope that I do justice and just
It's
know
a
that I'm
big
not,
question, Rachel. I
yeah,
apologize for putting
no, I love it. I love
okay.
it. So I'll do my best because this is actually one of my favorite topics, but I'm certainly not. There are scholars out there who are amazing. Like I would refer people to Christopher Harish Wallace, Carlos Pomeda. They're two amazing, very learned people that I've learned from.
Okay, we'll get
Um,
those links and put them in the
oh
notes.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're great.
Okay.
So as with many spiritual schools of thought, the question sort of starts from why am I suffering? And so, if we are looking at the history of Hinduism, it started with the Vedas, which were rituals where people would, like let's think more, a little bit more shamanistic fire sacrifices, like let's keep the natural order of things going. So let's pray to the gods, fire, sun, all of that stuff. Let's do these rituals so that the crops grow and we get a good afterlife. And so there's this idea of karma, this cycle of cause and effect. And then as time went on, and this is probably, we're talking like, 1000 BC. And I'm sure there was eons of history before that, but this is kind of where we start having an idea of what happened. Then we start to see that rather than participate in this, Wim Bryant, also another great scholar, calls it the gimme, gimme culture. It's kind of like, I'm going to give something to the gods. I'm going to get something back. And we do this a lot. We pray when we need stuff, not
Mhm,
because we desire a connection with God, perhaps all the
mhm.
time. So that gimme, gimme culture, some people were like, I don't know, this isn't doing it for me. And so there was a group of people, ascetics, renunciants, they were called shramanas, to exert. They went off kind of into the forest. This is a big theme in India. You go to the forest, go to the forest, and you leave society and go on these kind of adventures. And out of this emerged this wisdom of meditation. So that if you sit in meditation, meditation was the tool from the Upanishads going forward. Again, this is like 700, started 700 BCE and then kind of continued on. Meditate, and then you experience connection with what is fundamental to everything. My individual soul is connected to the universe. So actually, we have this non dual connection with everything starting quite early. But then, as those meditation traditions evolve, that's when we start to get kind of this dualistic thing, which is okay, the world is sort of bad. Everything here is suffering. And if I meditate, and I'm oversimplifying, but if I meditate, then I will connect to that highest thing, that soulful thing, which is untouched. In yoga, they call that Purusha. I'll connect to my individual soul and I'll get out of Prakriti. And so when students study the Yoga Sutras, which is a big yoga text, and all the teacher trainings, everyone's like, it's Yoga Sutras, ah! And everyone's very excited about it. And it is wonderful, but it is dualistic. He is
Mm,
clearly like, I'm going to meditate. And so there's a disregard. And this was designed for people who would go out into the woods and meditate and leave society and not be involved. And then we have an emergence. And part of it could have been like a social rebellion, too, where you're kind of like, well, if everyone goes off into the forest, who's going to have babies? Like it's a problem. And so we start to see in the Bhagavad Gita, we see some different ideas. And so the Bhagavad Gita, we're thinking like 200 BCE, 200 CE, kind of like time of Christ overlying that, where Krishna is like, okay, yes, you can meditate, great, no problem. But you could also, you must act. So here's an idea of, can I just not act? Can I not generate karma, harm? Can I just be in this transcendental state? And Krishna's like, no, baby, you can't. You cannot. You just by breathing, you're acting. A man acts. You can't be in this embodied form and not take action. So do it well. It's not
mm,
don't take action, it's do it well. Do the thing to the best of your ability, let go of the results. You're responsible for the actions, but not the fruits of your actions. That's skillfulness. And to not be attached to all of your desires, but to do your duty, to do the highest act that you can. So that was one thing Krishna said. And then Krishna's also like, and you could just love. You just love bhakti yoga, just love me. Make every act a devotion to me. And this is, I think, what we also see in Christianity, where we
mm,
see a religion of love, like Jesus is love. And so I think at this time too, and the yogis might say, and I kind of think this is what the Kali Yuga, we're in the darkest age right now, according to Hindu cosmology, the darkest age of existence. And so it's like, what is needed? What do we need? Well, we need a spiritual system based on love and bhakti and connection. And so I think Krishna offers that. Jesus offers that over here, where he's like love and devotion. And it's kind of simple, and they're kind of like, yeah, you kind of need something simple. Simple. Love, be kind, golden rule, whatever, however you want to describe it. Devotion, total devotion to God. Through your love of God, love all those little things around you. Through the love of the things around you, I love my cat, I love my dog, I love my friend. Through that, let yourself expand that love to the whole world. And I think that's beautiful. And then Tantra comes in after that, and elements of Tantra were not mainstream. There were some left-handed practices which were kind of like, whoa, that's over there. So Tantra in some ways got a bad rap. But from what I understand, and this is where I would refer you to Harish for it to be really specific, and this is now talking like this is like 500 to 1300. And Tantra really spread everywhere, much more than we thought, but they're just really beginning to reclaim these texts and interpret them. And it's a very sophisticated, beautiful philosophical school that has lots of different branches, lots of different families, if you will, some dual and some non-dual. I think we're most familiar with now is like Shaiva Tantra in the north, where it is a reclamation, basically that your body is the body of it. It is the goddess, and the
mm,
goddess. If you could see things from the highest point of view, you would see that everything that is manifest is actually just the universe loving itself so much that it creates this. So it's this
mm,
great play. And that if we could see it from the highest point of view, we'd realize how everything is one. If you like quantum, I always think about it as the Big Bang, that there's this
mm.
singularity of matter, energy, consciousness that for some reason decided consciousness decided it was like, hey, you know what, this is great, but it's all kind of boring because I'm just kind of one thing, let's see what happens. Right. And then limited itself in its omniscience, like it limited itself through the laws of physics, through time, through the creation of time, so that it could experience the myriad of forms that it is still experiencing. It is unfolding. And so that nothing is ever separated from that initial thing. It's just we are all experiencing ourselves from these different vantage points, but of the one. So then Tantra kind of fell apart because I think it was the Mughal invasions and Tantra was sort of state supported and then it lost that funding and kind of went underground. And so that's why we kind of lost track of it. But elements of it reemerged in Hatha yoga and then modern yoga. And now we're seeing this through the work of the scholar Alexis Sanderson, who was I think at Oxford and really did so much work. Like apparently he's like the only person who could ever read all the literature because he just devoted his whole life to it. And through all of his extensive work and then the studentship of other scholars, we're starting to get to see more and more of these texts be revealed, which are, yeah, beautiful. Anyway, so there you go, history of yoga.
I'm sending you this footage for you to put on whatever channel or whatever. That was magnificent. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's very fun.
That was very cool. Like in a nutshell, that was fantastic. Thank you for all of that. Because it is so interesting. I love that you kept bringing in the dual and the non-dual and how the history of planet Earth has so much grappled with exactly the conflict between those two perceptions and experiences, or at least perceptions. I don't know if we can really experience ourselves as being split in the way that we conceptualize ourselves
Mm.
as, you know, and yet, wow,
Yeah.
we conceptualize the shit out of that one and cause all kinds of problems.
You know, Allie, I look around just like my office, and if we just take a moment or close and you go, huh, okay, this is a real fabric. It's soft. I think it's cashmere. So I'm like, okay, so we had a creature who, you know, their wool and stuff like that. And then someone had the idea to put this into like even how to make thread. And then someone had the idea of how to make a machine that could do this thread. And then someone had to figure out how to dye it. And then someone had to design it. And then someone had to make it. If we expand that thought experiment to everything, we are so interconnected.
Yeah.
It's like so interconnected. Everything is so interconnected. It's crazy. And yet we so easily become blind to how connected we are to everything around us and to all the people and the animals and the earth. Like somehow we feel like we're not part of the earth anymore when you just look at a tree and you're like, oh, you know, like Gil, all of his work is that's in you. We are. And so you're so right. We create these concepts which are like, I'm independent. I'm like, I would have no clothes or no food. Ridiculous.
Awesome. You're awesome. I want to ask you, you tell me to what extent you might want to talk about or not talk about this, but I have not talked to anybody, I'm realizing, about childbearing on
Uh,
my podcast because I did not bear children. And of course, this is
mm,
such a cornerstone capacity that, in this case, mammals, humans have to bear children. And a body that has not, as opposed to has born children, that's a different thing. And I wanted to talk to you about that if you're willing
yeah.
to, if you're comfortable doing that, because it's something that I don't talk about very much because so many of my friends have had children and I did not. Cue in the aforementioned rogue. That's a whole thing. And it's very similar to what I heard you say, which is it was more important to me to have a healthy relationship, the one that you felt in your deep sense of self. I'm adding that in, that
Yeah.
was possible and that was healthy and good for you than it was to be a parent, to have a child out of your own body. And that's something you and
Yeah.
I share. And I'm wondering, because that was so important to you to have a child nonetheless, you went to great lengths, went through fertility challenges and efforts and expense to see whether you could do that even on your own.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to just talk about that journey? Because again, it's such an integral part of being a body with a womb that may or may not conceive, may or may not be able to conceive,
Mm,
may or may not get pregnant and, push out some babies that then you spend the rest of your life, if you're lucky, raising.
yeah.
Or not lucky. I mean, at this point, I'm very glad I didn't have children, but it was something to go through to want them, not have them, still not have them, and get to a
Yeah.
point many years ago, actually, where I'm like, oh, I'm good with this.
Yeah, I know. I think this is so valuable to talk about, Ali, especially because so many women grapple with this on both sides. I want them or I don't want them. And is that weird? Or women who really want them and then their bodies, for whatever reason, are not, it's not the right environment or they really struggle. And so, yeah, for me, and this is what kind of led to the Yogi's Guide to Dating book, is that I woke up out of a relationship with a human who I love. We're still besties, like we talked yesterday. So, a wonderful man, really clear he did not want children. And we sort of ignored that because we just enjoyed each other's company so much. And we ignored that for a while. And then finally it was like, okay, and then I was sad. I was like 41, something like that. And I was like, I thought I'd have kids. I grew up in a family. It was like, I was obviously going to have children.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. And so I joined all these dating sites, all of them. Seriously, week. I was like, I'm going for I put my mind to it. We're productive people. We're going to do
That's
it. We're going to
right.
make a game plan, make it happen. So I joined all of these sites and went out on a lot of dates, which is where I kind of realized, oh my gosh, dating is the perfect place to put all of our yoga practices into practice. It's the perfect environment to really practice a lot. But then I was involved with another man, a wonderful man, but it was not right. Our communication just disintegrated. And that was really painful because I could feel like, oh my gosh, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my last hope. I was like, this is the last one. But I went out and finally I was kind of like, fuck it, I can't do it. This isn't right. Because it was like our relationship wasn't solid enough. It was very painful. But it was painful not just because of him. It was painful because of my idea that I was losing. And so
Mhm.
I started to recognize it. And I did go and I found there's this other great man who was like, I'll be the father of your kid and I'll sign anything you want. And that'd be cool. Lovely human again. And I kind of tried that, but it didn't feel right. And then I did the sperm insemination. I went through 4 rounds of that. But I was so stressed out too, because I was so scared too about doing it by myself. And living in my basement suite in Vancouver, like, what am I doing? But I'm really glad I tried it. And then I finally reached this point where I thought, you know what? I put my hand to God. I tried, and motherhood and family isn't going to look the way for me
Mhm.
that I thought it was going to look. And so at that point, I started to pull up my life a little bit and be like, okay, well, then I'm going to go hang out with my nieces. My sister has 2 kids. They're beautiful, wonderful girls in college now. And I thought, I'll go and I'll hang out with them more. I'll make myself mobile. So if I'm not going to be a mother, and I really do feel that maternal love, but to me, it was also about being with someone else. I thought, how amazing is it that you and another human do this together? So that was also part of
Yeah.
the magic for me, is
Mm.
that, wow, that's magical. So even though I tried it with the professional turkey baster, you know, even though I
Yeah.
did that piece, there was something about that that felt so beautiful to me that I longed for because it just felt so amazing to do that. But I kind of reached this point where I was like, motherhood and that desire to be a mother will come out in a different way through my nieces, and I'm going to take advantage of the things because I know a lot of my friends who are moms, amazing moms. Love them, love their kids, but they can't go anywhere. They are there. That's where they're going to be for 15 years, is they're going to do that thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay, if I don't do that, then I'm going to make myself flexible. I'm going to be able to go anywhere in the world, do whatever, because it's a loss of a
Yeah.
particular potential. So, how can I basically make the most of it? What's the compensatory thing that I can do
Absolutely.
that'll,
Pros and
right?
cons. Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Yeah. And I also realized after that too that in dating, we talked about this earlier. You want someone to fill those missing pieces. And I do think there's a biological, whatever, we're animals, we're embodied, we have those feelings that I think are also powerful. But I realized that also a baby was a way to fill a missing piece, you know?
Mhm.
Baby was also a way of being like, oh, what did I want from that? I want to feel the sense of profound love. I'm like, well, let's do profound love then. Darn it. Like, if that's what I'm missing, let me practice that. Let me try to do love. I remember talking to Gil about this because it's so funny because I pulled up the stakes of my life. I was like, okay, I'm ready to leave Vancouver, leave my dear friends, my community, my yoga community that I taught in for 9 years. And then I met Gil, who I lived in Vancouver, Canada. He lived in Florida. And we just started talking. And this was after I'd kind of left the child world. I was like, okay, I'm going to move on. And we started chatting. And I was like, what is this? And then we hit it off. And I remember talking the very first weekend we met and hung out. I was like, I really wanted kids. And he's like, I've had three. I'm done. And I was like, no, I know. I know. But this timing, the timing never would have worked for us to have a relationship before that time. So the universe works in mysterious ways
I was going to say
sometimes.
that you hadn't gone through that whole process and accepted that
Yeah.
you weren't and found a way to express that, as you say, maternity or love in other ways, you wouldn't have gotten Gil. You wouldn't have gotten each other.
I think that's
That-
true.
That's just so amazing. So, what I was going to ask is, despite all the pain I imagine you went through during that whole process, that whole search, of what is going on with my body. Why isn't it doing what a female body is supposed to do, should do, isn't doing? I'm this yogi, I'm healthy, my body's not impregnating. What was that like for you? Did you trust the intelligence of your body? Did you eventually, it sounds like you did, or did you feel betrayed by it? Did you feel like a
Mm,
failure because your body wasn't doing what it
mm,
was designed to do? How did you make sense of your body
mm.
not responding in the way
Right.
that we think of as fertility? Yeah,
Right. Well, I was in my 40s. So I think I was a little bit more pragmatic than that. I didn't feel betrayed by my body.
you
I felt
didn't.
like, no, no, I felt like what's meant to be will be. And I more trusted the big picture of it. But it wasn't like I tried for a year. I only tried 4 times. I say only. That seems like, well, it should just happen. But I had enough context to know that at my age and also pregnancy in general, that 4 times, if I really wanted to try it, I would have gone 12. I would have tried it a year. And then I might have felt like, what the fuck? But four
Mhm.
times, I was kind of like, all right, if it's meant to be, it'll be. Because I think this is important too. There's ambivalence. And by ambivalence, I don't mean apathy. I mean ambivalence,
Yeah.
deeply wanting a child and also going like, fuck, this is scary. And all the things I'm going to sacrifice, especially as a single mom, a
Yeah.
single person, no other parent mom. And then also, it just strikes me that also for women out there who've had children and who love them, but also go like, oh my God, I miss working. I miss having free time. I miss being able to wash my hair whenever I want to. And for us not to blur those things and go like, oh, I can't think that I'm a bad mom. Or for me to feel it somehow compromises my independence to be like, oh no, sometimes I really long for that alternate universe. I think it's okay to have both. I think it's better to hold, wow, it's complex. And I have some feelings of grief and longing, and I have some feelings of relief both ways.
Yeah.
You
Good
know,
old
there's just,
paradox of the goddess.
that's right. Yeah, and sometimes I wave. I think what's her name? Cheryl Strayed,
Ah,
amazing author. I encourage everybody to get her Dear Sugar book. But there was this beautiful. She wrote an advice column under a pseudonym, Dear Sugar, for years, and it's so poignant and wise. And there's one where someone's asking her a question, I believe, about it was about childbearing, and she was talking about we have these other versions of ourselves. Sorry, Cheryl Strayed, I'm paraphrasing poorly, but you kind of wave at them from the shore as they go by. And I totally feel that. I feel the threads of my alternate lives in multi dimensions pull at me sometimes. I'm like, oh, there's the life over there where I stayed in the
yeah.
arts. Oh, here's the life where I was a mother. And you can kind of feel them close to you, but trust that this is the life that this is supposed to be in right now. Those
Yeah.
also could be happening, right?
And who's to say we don't have simultaneous iterations and parallel universes or past lives or future lives where we had
I
plenty
feel
of
it.
children or will or whatever,
Oh,
but
yeah.
this is the one we're doing now.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to
exactly.
ask you only one more question, Rachel, which is difficult because this is such a banquet of fun conversation. But when you were talking earlier about the spiritual growth, development, insight, and inspiration that you experience when you're yogaing, it sounded like your thoughts about spirituality or your experience of spirituality is really complex. You've obviously read a lot, you've been devoted to this whole tradition that has this vast history, thousands of year old history of concepts and constructs and beliefs and teachings, and a lot of content goes into that version of spirituality. I'm holding that and listening to that description and feeling that description next to in the anatomy lab where there's just a, a gape and agape. There's just awe that also has a spiritual quality to it that brings us to that inevitable pause that happens when we know we can't really understand any of it, at least conceptually, but we can be in the feeling of whatever that is. So I was just being with this interesting contrast of the conception of spirituality and all the ways that we try to teach ourselves how to be better humans and more loving and things that are
Mm.
very verbal, to put it simply, as opposed to just this sensational consciousness or inkling of the mystery that we inhabit.
Mm.
Just curious if you wanted to say anything about
Mm.
that.
Yeah, I love it. I think that all those concepts, like yoga history concepts, reading spiritual books, that's really a way to realign our mind, our conditioning, with something that is more fundamental and more real and more true. So I think that it's easier to experience that state of agape, of wonderment, of awe, of gobsmackedness, of connection. I think for some of us who are hamster brained, that reading some of these things and in trying to take in that wisdom with my mind is helpful just because my mind races around. So it's helpful for it to have better stories, basically, if you will. But I feel like the juice or the non conceptual recognition of feeling that, oh, and for me, this is why my practice is going outside and sitting. I have to be still. That's my most sophisticated practice is going and sitting on a chair and looking at the mountains and just not thinking, just to be. That's like my most advanced practice right now because I think that connects with the non-conceptual experience of, okay. And I think that's where it's at. But for some of us who are like head cases,
Yeah.
the stories help.
So, is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to add about your experience or concept of the intelligence of the body?
Just, Al, just make time to listen, I guess. Make time to listen. Give yourself permission to listen, a safe space to listen, even if it's just a little bit of time a day, just to let your body, with all of its beautiful grace, complexity, and all of its witchy wisdom, be a part of your life.
I love it.
Mm.
This was so much fun, Rachel. Thank you for sharing this
Yeah.
time and your brilliance in so many ways. I really, really enjoyed being with you.
Me too. This was great, such a good conversation and very heartful and beautiful questions, thought provoking. So thank you. Thank you, Allie. It's nice to
Yay.
see you. Yeah.
I know it's great to see you too. And how can people see more of you? We didn't
Oh,
even get into your educational expertise and how you teach people to have online courses. And I need to become one of
yeah.
your students, and you do all kinds of fabulous things. Where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. Just go to Rachel, Rachel, yoga.com, and you can, that's like kind of a portal to all the different things. And yeah, you can find my classes and education stuff and all of that stuff there. On social, Rachel Scott Yoga is where you can say hi and say hey. So please do if you're interested.
All righty. To be continued in all kinds of wondrous ways. Thank you again.
Thanks, Allie.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for being with us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'd be so grateful if you could share it with a friend, leave a review, and rate the podcast. This really does help us reach more people in our mission to expand the global understanding, experience, and celebration of body brilliance. And just so you know, our events and content remain free in our effort to expand the meaning of intelligence, but we do gratefully accept donations to help with our operating costs. So if you have a bit extra and feel so inspired, you can find the link to support us in the show notes. And while you're there, check out all the resources we've included to help you dive deeper into today's topics. You can also visit www.thebrilliantbodypodcast.com for a complete list of episodes, body meditations, and many more brilliant things. And if you're curious to explore how I work with clients and students to reclaim body brilliance, Visit my website at www.alimezey.com. And lastly, a huge hearty thank you to my co-producer and co-editor, the brilliant Florence Popoff, and to Blair, Mr. One-Man Band Wilson, for our theme music. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, stay loving, and reclaim your brilliant body.